So I'm going to throw out the first question to our two panelists. What motivated you, or another way to put this, what possessed you to start your new venture?
Sure. So let me just back up. I'll give you a little bit of background on me, the companies that I've started. So as you know, I'm CEO of MitoChem out of Charleston, South Carolina. That's one of 3 startups I've been involved with. I started my career, started my first startup actually before graduating from the University of Arizona. I was in an entrepreneurship program, and I was involved in a startup that did technology transfer of large lightweight optics for lasers, telescopes, and spaceborne optics. We got a first contract with Los Alamos National Labs, building a large laser weapons project. The culmination of that company, I'd left it, I came back to it, turned it around. The James Webb Space Telescope, the primary mirror on that telescope, we were selected as the optical test bed for that. So long time in the making. It turns out that everything I've worked on is an extremely long gestation process before we actually can see market. The second startup was a medical device company. I started after being fired for not growing a company fast enough, a public company fast enough. And I took my severance package with that, got back together with a doctor and a physicist and an ex-Wall Street analyst. 2 of us started this company. That company is developing a breakthrough therapy for treating wet macular degeneration with therapeutic radiation. If you have this disease, most of you likely know somebody who does, the standard of care is a monthly injection into your eye for the rest of your life, and it works for about 30 to 50% of people. So a huge unmet need, and this device is a one-and-done treatment, 1 5-minute procedure to treat the abnormal blood vessel growth at the back of the eye. That positioned me for what I'm currently doing at MitoChem. MitoChem is a spin-out from the Medical University of South Carolina, started in the Beeson and Rohrer labs. The genesis of the idea, which I think is important here, is the understanding that in retinal diseases, that there is a change in metabolism that occurs very early on in the disease, and essentially the retina never recovers from that. And so Dr. Rohrer is a neuroscientist with an ophthalmology focus, and her partner, Craig Beeson, was a medicinal chemist and a mitochondrial expert. And she sat back with Craig one day and said, maybe if we went after fixing this metabolic crisis, we could actually slow or stop disease progression. So that was the genesis of the company. That company was started back in 2011. I joined in 2019, so I was past the ideation stage. For me, the optics company, the start on that idea was sort of serendipitous. I was part of this entrepreneurship program. I got paired together with this slovenly individual out of the university. He turned out to be, a genius problem solver and stepped into this amazing experience. And I knew from a very early age that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I didn't know the word entrepreneur. I thought it was an engineer. I started my undergraduate degree in engineering, thinking that was the way you invented things, but that ultimately led to me leaving engineering because while I was good at the math and everything, there didn't seem to be any creativity there. So with that, with that startup, that was one genesis. The other one was literally, I got let go from a publicly traded company. I was the sacrificial lamb for Wall Street, and I got a phone call from this very bright doctor, and he said, "You need to quit, and we need to start a company," because he had just finished turning around a company. So I said, luck would have it, I'm available. And so we spent 6 months looking for technologies. And again, this one, the one we ultimately went with, fell into our lap. That's probably a long-winded answer to your question,
fine.
Sorry.
One common theme you will hear from both of these founders is that they started with a very large organization and then began the entrepreneurial road. So Lindsey, tell us about your background and your path to starting up Incora.
Sure, yeah. So I actually started at a large company, started my career with Johnson & Johnson. So started in the lab, doing product development, R&D work, decided, similar to Mike, that wasn't creative enough for me. So being an engineer, I wanted to do more. Expanded out, moved into different roles with large companies, dabbled in new product development, and then got involved with IP. So intellectual property kind of ties hand in hand with inventing new products. So I actually took and passed the patent bar, so registered patent agent, and then looking at different technologies there really drove my passion just to learn more and to understand more, especially in the medical sector. So Steve Johnson actually is one of the great mentors and people in my world that introduced me to the startup world. Worked with Steve at Creative Ask, and was my first real startup experience, and then since then have worked with other startup companies too. But going back to your last question on why we created Incora Health and formed Incora Health was really based off of our passion and personal experience. My co-founder, Teresa Gavart, and myself both had personal experiences that really drove us to create Incora Health and form the company. Incora Health is a company focused for women's health, and first initially looking at helping women with fertility, infertility issues, and then since developing the technology and really understanding the need, have grown the technology and customer base as well into more of a general women's health platform. So myself, the passion and my personal experience with just having babies, you know, there is a real unmet need and real data that needs to be had on a lot of different avenues on women's health. Postpartum is one example of that, and with, you know, I don't know any other real procedure that someone might have. Get their abdomen cut open, a C-section, have a baby, and 24 hours later up caring for another human being. And the next time after going home, seeing a doctor about 2 months later, or talking to a doctor 2 months later, you know, that's just not acceptable. So really, Incora Health has a big mission in really helping women collect information and really understanding their bodies to help them be overall healthier and meeting their wellness and fertility goals.
So as you both think about the ideation process and coming up with ideas for a new company, you both talked about very serious problems. I can't imagine having a needle put in your eye. I can't imagine having a C-section. So how much of your decision to start up, scale up a company was based upon your drive to solve that specific problem? How personal was that to both of you?
Sure, I'll take that one. And very personal, yes. And going back to that example of delivering a baby and having a baby and not seeing a doctor and having another real trying to find an understanding of how you can have a solution of understanding if everything is healing properly, if your mental health is okay, if you know, if there are any other issues without, you know, having to go back to the doctor's office because there's so many things on your plate as being a mother. So, you know, that unmet need and really looking for solutions and not really finding the appropriate solutions on the market specifically is what drove us to really develop the product for Incora Health. And what we're developing and what we've been working on over the past 18 months or so is a new wearable device for women's health in the form factor of an earring. So we are able to identify a novel location of collecting data as a lot of other wearables do on the market, like a watch or a ring. But the collection of our data, the location of it, the novelty of it, we're able to not only put it in a form factor, getting it out of the way of a mother changing diapers and feeding baby and things of that nature, but also have identified a location that is more accurate data that is being able to be collected and providing feedback to these mothers and women on different aspects of their health that they're not aware of, and making sure and giving kind of the peace of mind that everything is going well, and if it's not, getting an alert and then being able to reach out to get help.
Yeah, so I would say the optics company was a technology that was created unto itself, and then we did something with it. So I was just completely fascinated with what it could possibly be. The medical device company that I started came out of years of experience, because like Lindsey, I didn't start my career really in entrepreneurship. I technically did with the optics company, but I spent after that a lot of time in industry, Fortune 100, 500 companies, and seeing issues. I mean, the reason why you live is that you see things that you can fix. You're like, how can people just not fix that? Or here's an opportunity, and you go to management, and they just don't act on it. Ultimately leads you to just saying, things aren't moving fast enough, I want to make a bigger difference. And with the medical device company, we came across a technology that was very similar to another one that was highly funded, $100 million venture-backed company. Similar technology, another serendipitous thing where somebody was looking to get rid of this patent. We knew one of the patent holders, and they were going to give it to him. The question was it worth his time? We took a look at it and quickly realized that everybody's getting these injections in the eye. That's a bad thing, right? No one wants to poke with a needle in your eye. This other technology similar to ours was a one-time treatment into your eye. And we looked at this and we said, well, that sounds pretty nasty as well. And given the properties of radiation, it doesn't really matter where you are versus the target, as long as you're near the target. And so we said, why do you have to be in the eye? Why can't you just be behind the eye? And that was looking at, well, I would say probably one of the things I heard early on in my career was, if you play in big markets, you don't need a big piece of it to be successful. And so part of my criteria, most of the stuff I work on, are huge opportunities. Big markets, lots of unmet needs, so that if you have a small threshold of success, that's a win. And then you have, if you're really successful, you can be really transformative. So looking at the issues of how people are doing it, and then just asking the why. Why do they do it that way?
So you both found really specific problems that needed solutions. But anytime you look, and Mike, you mentioned, hey, there's a great big market out there. Usually if there's a great big market out there, there's a pretty big competition out there as well. So how did you both analyze the path, the market, and the hurdles that you would have to overcome from attacking or being a threat to a competitor that was already there? Lindsey?
Sure, yeah, and that's a great question. Especially with Incora, we really focused initially on looking at the customers, interviewing customers of what we thought our target audience was, doing a lot of that customer interview. And the more and more we talked to women, the more and more we heard that the options for other wearables on the market, whether it be, our competition would be the Fitbit or Oura Ring or something of that nature, doesn't meet their standard, whether it's the look or the data is incorrect or whatever they're using it for just does not work out for their life. So we were able to really look at the competitive landscape and really identify not only who the competitors are, but where are they really lacking and what our unmet need was. And being able to identify that, yes, they are not meeting this market segment, and there is still that unmet need, and we're hearing that from our customers that the competition, is lacking, and especially the women's health side of things. And that just really provided more fuel to the fire to help us out, really develop a product that is really, meeting what our customers are looking for.
Yeah, that's great. So some of the questions that I've learned over time is you have to understand the difference between customers and end users, right? So I've spent my early career in consumer products. You have to sell to a retail chain, and then consumers buy it out of a retail chain. And understanding that, that's, I think, most people have that as a blind side. Who do you actually have to sell the product to and through to get to the end user? And I think the other thing that's always been helpful for me is as we look at these opportunities, asking yourself the question, who is going to win with this thing and who is going to lose with this thing? And sometimes that that reveals that maybe the distribution channel might be a loser in this, and that could be fatal for your project, right? And so identifying those things, in my case, why would the patient want it? Why would the doctor want it? Why would the doctor want to use it? The hospital, is a hospital involved? And then will the insurance or the payer be involved? So figuring out, as you do your assessment, who are the winners and losers, and having answers for those. And they don't have to be, if there's going to be a loser, understanding how you overcome that, right? If a hospital doesn't want something and a physician says, I have to have it, what's going to happen? The doctor's going to get it, right? You'd rather have everybody on your side, but assessing your market that way and understanding who wins and who loses and how to address each of those, I think is really important, because eventually somebody's, a sharp investor is going to say, what about this, right? And you better be ready.
So let's take that on down the road. You've looked at the market, you look at the competition. How did you decide, where am I going to get a beachhead? Where am I going to go first to get market share, to get first customers, and to really begin to have an impact on that problem and that market? Lindsey?
Yeah, and with Incora Health, we did a lot of work initially on the business plan and which market we're going to target first. And generally, looking at the competition was a really good spot to even look to see what they did and what's been successful with them on their business models as well. We're in a unique opportunity where, our product is a wearable device and also an app, a custom app associated with it. So if we want to be in doctor's offices, fertility clinics, women's health clinics, pharmacies, things of that nature, some aspects of ours does need FDA approval. However, we were able to identify to go ahead and start selling and making revenue, we can market ourselves as a consumer electronic for a wearable. So that was where, a lot of the creativity has played out, like our competition is doing as well, where we are first approaching the market as a consumer product, and then taking that user data and putting it back into the company, and also the knowledge that we get from the first launch back into the company, and improving the product to become that medical technology as well into the doctor's offices and the clinics.
Mike?
So at MitoChem, our first indication, the first disease that we're going after is what's called an orphan disease. So less than 200,000 Americans have this disease. And it turns out that for a long time, big pharma wouldn't go after these small diseases because there just wasn't enough money in it. And there was legislation that was passed that basically said, we need to figure out how to actually get drug development for these small patient populations. And so FDA now has a program called Orphan Drug Designation, and you apply, you get designated for that. So our beachhead has two benefits. One, it's a smaller market. It's not going after the major CNS diseases as a starting point, and then we have the benefit of FDA's support. So FDA, because there's so few patients, and they're desperate for products, they'll actually help you get through studies. The size and the scope of the studies that you have to have, one, can't facilitate huge clinical trials because there just aren't that many patients. So our beachhead is going after an orphan disease indication, and what that'll do is that'll establish the proof of concept for our drug, and then we'll be able to go after the large indications. So macular degeneration, which everybody's heard about, there's 10 to 15% of that group is called wet macular degeneration. That's a $12 billion market. Dry macular degeneration has no therapies today other than a vitamin regimen. So if we prove out what we're doing in this orphan disease and get to market, right, the big payoff is going to be on this. And that helps with investors who are looking at, all right, so we'll do this orphan drug, you get onto the market with that, and then that'll prove us to the larger ones. And luckily for us, our mechanism is one that, if we're right about what we're doing in the eye, because all your retina is brain material at the back of your eyeball, right? So you're looking at the brain right there. If we're right about what we're doing in the eye, there's the potential that we can go after things like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and ALS. So strategically, beachhead, that we got support early on from a foundation. They said, we need these things, there's unmet needs. Stepped in there, got the company up and running, and now it's pushing that through and then leveraging that for these larger markets.
So we've talked about a big problem, a big market, how to attack which beachhead, which market segment to go after. But then we always ask our companies, how have you validated your concept with a specific customer, with a person who actually would benefit from your technology? And what steps did you go through to actually go to the customer, hear the voice of the customer, get input from them, and say, I like this, I don't like this, I like something changed? And how did the concept evolve because of that input? Lindsey.
Yeah, another great question, Steve. So we started off with customer interviews as a customer being women that would be wearing our technology. From a lot of interviews and customer feedback, we learned, we started with our technology of measuring one vital sign or one biometric data point within. And from that learnings from interviewing different customers, we were able to expand our product offering and offer multiple other data measurement capabilities within our technology. So that's one way. And then another thing I want to talk about through that answer too, like I said, our market is two different kind of avenues, I would call it. We've also done a good bit of customer interviews on the clinician side of things too. And we're really excited about our newly developed and growing partnership with the USC School of Medicine up in Greenville. With Dean Jenkins. She has been a great mentor and leader on the clinical side of things for our technology. And she has been helping us on really getting that clinician input as well, because not only do we need the consumer, the woman that will be using the technology, but also the medical input as well. So it's interesting, if you have a technology, the first customer you might think of might be a good customer, but might not be the only customer. So really trying to understand who is the end user, and also all of the customers, and also all of the key players involved with the technology or the company.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have similar experience. The access to the physician, I was lucky with the medical device company, that my business partner was both a physicist and an MD. And there's nothing like actually having an MD as a partner on your staff, be able to walk into hospitals, talk to people. And we spent a lot of time, speaking to experts, in the medical space, very different types of physicians. We talked to physicians in the US, we talked to physicians in Europe, really to understand, this is what we're thinking about, and approaching them, instead of saying, I've got this company, saying, I have this possible solution, I want to make sure that I'm thinking about the problem right, and I want to leverage your expertise. And we were always amazed at how many people would just step up and really engage on that. You always had to be careful about trying not to create somebody as an inventor in what you were doing. And I would say at MitoChem, I wasn't around, but Dr. Rohrer was involved with Foundation Fighting Blindness, and she brought this forward to the foundation, and she said, I have this idea, and because the foundation is filled with experts within that indication, within retinitis pigmentosa, there was a lot of validation, and that led to an investment from Foundation Fighting Blindness. So in the diligence process, I found, and maybe you found this, in the diligence process, not only with physicians or hospitals or payers, but also investors, just going out and seeking advice and trying to just pressure test your idea and saying, I'm not here for money, I'm not here to sell you anything, I'm just here to make sure that if there's any leaks in this thing, you're going to help me find it. And some of those actually turned into funding sources.
So when you look back to day one to where you are now, and you both come a long way, what would you describe as some of the best practices that you have individually put in place that you can say, I'm glad I did this? What are some of the things that you could share with others that are doing startups, and these are things that you would look back on and say, that was a good idea?
Yeah, I think I have two to that answer, if that's okay. Number one is just networking and really understanding the opportunities that your community offers. Incora Health is based out of Greenville, South Carolina, so in the South Carolina region, right, SCRA. Up in Greenville, next upstate, has been tremendous support for different opportunities to provide for small, companies like Incora, making connections even, just networking and finding mentors. Mentors that won't just, gloss over and say everything looks perfect, but ones that will poke holes in it and poke holes in your business plan, really try to challenge you and ask you the right questions, because, starting a company is hard and lonely sometimes. So really need to find great mentors that are strong and really supporting you through the process, and just kind of reach out to the community and see what your community offers. And my number two on that kind of piggybacks that answer, but is finding a support group also with other founders. Greenville has a great support group with founders. I see our Greenville founder table back there, and really just love to kind of share stories, make connections, hear other challenges from founders, and also bounce ideas off of each other. So really just trying to pump up your network and have people you can lean on and ask questions.
Yeah, so I remember when we were talking about speaking today, one of the things that, Lindsey, that you'd mentioned was, and I think you're just so spot on with this, is build your team with people that are way smarter than you are, right? And I heard a long time ago, and it's such a truism, that if you hire people that are better than you, you'll build a company of giants. If you hire people who are smaller than you, you'll build a very small company. And they tell you this, it's one of the things they tell you in business school, how important the people are. Joseph Hanna talked about the market, or Andreessen's belief that the market's everything. I sort of eliminate that because we play in really big markets, but I really believe it's the people, right? So making sure that you've got the absolute best people on your team, making sure those people are aligned with what the culture of a startup is. I mean, I know a lot of really smart people, successful people in corporate America that would be an absolute disaster in a startup, right? Because they get to a certain point, they're used to all the support behind them, and you get in the startup world, and you're cleaning the toilet, right? And you're presenting to venture capitalists, right? You're doing everything. And so I think team is super important. And I would say the team also extends beyond the people at the company. It's getting really good legal counsel, right? Legal counsel, and don't short yourself on that. And then if you have the luxury, get good investors, right? You want investors that are smart, knowledgeable in this space. And I always say, I selfishly go after my investors for their knowledge and really drag them into the company to really help out, right? So, if you do those things have been the ones that really help you solve it in the end. So when you run into problems, it's your team, right? And it's a problem, the optimism in the team, the belief that you can actually solve problems, and that team is not just people right around you, but in close orbit at your company.
I'm sure that Joel Stevenson in the back with the Moore School will tell you that one of the things that I tell his entrepreneurship class that, number one, you need to surround yourself with people that are much smarter than you are, and if you're threatened by that, you probably shouldn't be doing the job to begin with. And that's the advice I give them. Now let's go now into the weeds. MitoChem started as an LLC and converted to a C Corp. On the other hand, Incora started out as a C Corp. So what was your thinking to begin with to start out as a C? Because most of our companies start out as an LLC and then go to a C.
Yeah, and generally I'm going to blame Matt Gavert on that one. No. Having great mentors and really some advice from our board to guide us in the direction of starting out of a C Corp, knowing that we're a technology company and going to raise money relatively quickly after forming the company for product development and product launch. Is really the kind of sole reason we started as a C Corp, because we already had the business plan put together and knew what funding we needed.
So as I'd mentioned, MitoChem was started back in 2011, long before me. I know it made the transition to C Corp. I can speculate as to why that was. The reason why we started, my medical device company, we started as an LLC, and we were doing that really because we were searching for technologies and evaluating things that we could either license or acquire, and we needed a legal entity. And when you start up, you're pulling money out of your own pocket, so the LLC was a very affordable way to get a legal structure around you, so that you can sign agreements. It's nice having that legal structure that makes you feel a little more real than just a paper napkin. And then it was a mentor. So there was a venture capitalist that I knew had his funds. He had a number of funds, and his funds were completely tapped out. Any dry powder he had left were really to help see the investments through. And I called him up and I said, I know you can't invest in me. That's great. I'm asking you for help and advice. I want to make sure that I have this idea that I think is amazing. I want you to tell me, am I out of my mind? And we went in and we presented. It went better than expected. And he said, all right, so make this change. You do that, then the next thing you have to do is you have to convert from an LLC to a C Corp. And I said, why is that? And he said, you don't want to be playing around, you want to be plain vanilla for the venture capital world. Now, in disclosure, you're technology and medical. I'm pure medical. It may be different in high tech, but in raising venture capital in the life science space, plain vanilla is a C Corp, right? And you want to have as few novel things in your company for anybody to question, and that was the main driver. So, we spent the money to get a proper C Corp done, all the filings in Delaware, really as a function of making sure we were plain vanilla, ready for venture, for both angel investment that would lead to venture capital.
So digging down, once you form, whether it's a C Corp or an LLC, how important is the name of the company? Because both of you, I know, went through name changes along the way from the original concept. And frankly, we've had companies come in to present to us that had like 4 names, and you're trying to figure out, are they trying to make an acronym out of this or what? But how do you evolve and select what you believe is the best name to go to market with?
Yeah, so Incora Health was developed based off of overall customer feedback. We started out with a different name of VeriTrack, which a lot of customers that we interviewed didn't really understand the name. It was hard to really understand why that name. Incora, knowing that the earring that we're developing is originally measuring core body temperature and core body other bio data measurements like heart rate and other things. So that was the kind of genesis of the name, and really trying to describe a main value proposition that our technology offers.
Yeah, so I'm going to punt a little bit on this one. I come from a consumer products marketing background. I'm classically trained in brand management and know the power and importance of a brand name. I would say there's a couple of axioms. Having a short name is really good for like small things. When your logo gets put up on a screen somewhere, short names are bigger, right? And in terms of capturing visibility, that's important. Names that are easy to pronounce, right? That when anybody looks at it, 95% of the people say it the same way. Trying not to be too cute on the name. And then I would say within what we do, in the areas that I've been in, your audience, the first people we had to sell were the people with the money, right? So part of the name came down to, why did you pick that name? So my medical device company was Salutaris MD. Salutaris is Greek, Latin for health and strength. And so it was Salutaris Medical Devices. We did Salutaris MD because MD was short and signified something medical. And then we could tell the story with venture capitalists. This is why we're doing this, knowing full well that in the end, when we launched a product, the product, we'd go through a really extensive branding, around the product. But even then, you're still, those are being marketed to physicians and formularies and very little consumer product. But I think short names that are easy to pronounce, that nobody can mess up, that are not too cute, and that have some tie to what you're trying to deliver, I think are really important. Because awareness, getting people to understand what you do is one of the hardest things you can do with product marketing and sales. And having a name that actually sells for you, I think, is key.
So as you got underway and began to look at adding and creating a team, what steps did you take to provide incentives to attract a team to you, whether it's putting aside stock options as part of your cap table? What were the things that you did to make sure down the road that you were able to attract the very best talent?
Sure, I'll start. So that's a great question. So oftentimes you're going to find yourself with a couple people that you're going to start the company with. One of the hard things to decide is who gets what equity, right? And I would tell you, if you're in a partnership and it's 50-50, that's problematic, right? If you have 50-50, then you're gonna have to rely on your operating agreement or your incorporation documents or a side letter that says this is how we resolve issues. So it's really difficult, but those are conversations I would say you wanna have up front with your partners or your founders. Who is gonna be who's gonna have what equity and have it be such that you're not in a stalemate. And then in terms of attracting people, making sure, the simple thing are stock options, right? Making sure that your stock plan includes a stock options program. These are boilerplate documents that still cost small fortunes to have your lawyer basically change a couple of things in them, but they're well worth it. And then once you have that, using those incentives to align people's interests, right? You're typically asking really sharp people who have lots of opportunity in front of them, to come take a big risk. And part of that is the excitement around your ability to make a big impact. And so both of us are working on things that we know will transform. If we're right and they're successful, they're gonna make a huge difference. So finding people that wanna join really from that, and then having their incentives align with yours so that you're always pulling in the same direction with your team.
Yeah, and I'll kind of, are we running up on time? Okay, thank you. I'll kind of mirror a little bit on that, and we have a similar type of process as well. Over this past year, I would say we've really been focusing on two big things, is developing the product for market launch, and the second big thing is forming out our team. Really finding the right people to fit into the key, employee positions or consultants or contract. Being a startup company, you have to do a lot, and the CEO of a startup company, you have to do a lot, what Mike said, of really positioning yourself and really telling the story in a way of getting other people passionate about what you're doing as well. So really, that's been fun. A fun challenge over this past year is really trying to network and find those right key players to fit into these holes of, things that we need, like marketing and also product development and manufacturing, supply chain, launching products, all kinds of different ways, and really trying to tell the story and find people that are as passionate as you, if not even more, than what we've found, just based off of the overall opportunity and how we can help our customers of, a problem that they have and there's no real solution to right now, has been kind of the real driving force and the real driving conversation of attracting some really top talent that we've been able to find.
So one final question, one sentence answer. What keeps you awake at night?
So I have 4 children. I have 2 girls, a boy, and a company. The company keeps me up at night. None of my children do, but every single night I'm awake because of, responding to emails. This pitch for funding's coming up. Talking at a SCRA conference. No, that didn't keep me up, but the company, on every different aspect of the company, keeps me up every single night.
It's too funny. I would say it comes, there are 2 things that in the founder position that drive me. One, I embrace. The other one, is just really hard. The really hard one is when you start raising money and you hire people on and you have no revenue, you have this additional weight on your shoulders that you've got people's lives and their families' lives in your charge, and making sure that you're making progress and that you've got investment lined up and that you have enough runway to make sure that you don't run out of cash. And that is a harrowing thing, and I've lost a lot of sleep over that. And I would say I have a natural drive that I can't move fast enough, right? I want to get stuff done faster, and that's healthy. I feel like that's healthy. But and if you're good at raising, I know that you said one sentence. You knew this was a problem with the two of us. If you're able to accomplish your goals and your milestones, that relieves typically the pressure, reduces the pressure on your ability to raise money. So, moving fast enough and making sure that we don't run out of money.
I will end this session by saying we live in a state, South Carolina has produced so many people that have come up with great ideas that have revolutionized a market. Yesterday, we actually said goodbye to one of those in the Greenville and the Furman community, and his name was Gordon Herring. Gordon Herring came up with an idea that, hey, what if everybody in America could get information about weather in their community any time of the day or night? Gordon Herring, a Greenville Furman graduate, started the Weather Channel. He can do it. You can do it. These two are doing it. And let's give Mike and Lindsey a great hand for their input this morning.